People when they never were at all. When the whole foundation crumbles and the mighty take their fall. Don't meet your heroes. Now I know just what they meant. Some pedestals hold monsters.
Hope I haven't forgotten anybody. If I have, I apologize. It's going to be a good show, you guys. So let's wind up and get started. Greetings to the truth seekers and justice warriors that have shown up. I'm Z, your storyteller in the wilderness of injustice. My ride or die doc is riding shotgun as we navigate the darkness where the predators hunt and the system fails us. Are you ready, Doc?
I'm always ready.
We're ready to shed some light on, just one moment here. On the, I forgot my slides. Oops. Ready to shed some light on the forgotten stories society would rather leave buried. And today, you guys, we're examining a case that reveals how celebrities can corrupt justice and silence victims for decades. Artie Fox, True Crime, thank you for coming. This is the story of Pauline Pusser, a woman murdered by her sheriff husband, then forgotten, while Hollywood turned her killer into a hero. For 58 years, the walking tall legend has concealed the truth about domestic violence, staged crime scenes, and a justice system that failed a mother of three. So buckle up. The road ahead gets rough as we guide you through another part of this nightmare they call the justice system, where the badges sometimes can serve as shields for murder and movie screens can hide the truth. And I don't know which walking tall you might remember. Of course, they started out with Joe Don Baker here. And then eventually they moved on to Bo Svensson. If you might have caught that episode or that movie. For the younger generation, I'm sure they remember The Rock taking on the part for Hollywood. And then even Hercules himself, I guess Kevin Sorbo, did a stint as Sheriff Buford Pusser. That just sounds funny. We're just
But
going to call
that
him.
is correct.
I know, but we're going to call him Buford because I don't want therapists, to be laughing too much through the episode. And lighting their way home. Thank you for joining us. So let's start talking about this story. And I'm going to tell you exactly what Buford claimed happened. Okay? On the night of August 12th, 1967, the story that became a legend. It spawned movies, had some TV time, and made him a total folk hero. Now, according to Buford's account, at approximately 4 a.m., he received a phone call. It was disturbing that there was some trouble at the state line. And initially, they were going to send his father, Carl, who was also in law enforcement, or one of the deputies. But the caller specifically requested Buford, insisted it had to be him personally. Now, if any of you know Buford's history, he was always saying he was cleaning out, getting rid of the Dixie Mafia and the State Line Boys and the Detroit mob and anyone that was messing with his town and his county. So he kind of had a ferocious reputation, and he was always saying people were out to get him. So let's get back to our story. Just think about that for a moment. His wife, Pauline, according to Buford, insisted on coming along for this dangerous pre-dawn call. They drove down New Hope Road in total darkness because, 4 a.m., it's dark. Buford claimed that he passed the New Hope Methodist Church going about 50 miles an hour on a freshly resurfaced road. Just 0.7 of a mile later, at what he called the first ambush site, this mysterious car with no headlights somehow fell in behind them. The car turned on its headlights all of a sudden and opened fire. 2 shots were fired. One struck Pauline in the head, wounding but not killing her. She leaned into Buford, gasping for air and bleeding, making it impossible for him to reach his service weapon. Now, Buford claimed that he hit the gas and he sped away, leaving the attackers behind. And after driving 2 more miles, he stopped at the intersection of New Hope and Davis Yancey Roads to check on his wounded wife. Now, that's when the attackers supposedly caught up, and they pulled up alongside and opened fire in what Buford described as much more intense barrage. This second volley killed Pauline instantly with a shot to the head and severely wounded Buford. He claimed multiple bullets struck him, including the devastating jaw wound that blew away part of his lower face. It actually didn't, though. Okay, I've seen the photos. I don't have them on here. I wouldn't do that to you guys. It didn't. So despite these severe injuries, Buford said he fell to the floorboard, which saved his life. When he regained consciousness, he looked up to see the attacker's car was still there, with a gun hanging out the window. In an act of incredible bravery, he reached out and grabbed the barrel of the rifle. The attackers fled, leaving Buford critically wounded and Pauline dead. Now, despite his injuries, he managed to radio for help. Thank goodness. Hello, OnlyFan. Now, this story portrayed Buford as the heroic lawman targeted for his aggressive tactics against organized crime along the Tennessee-Mississippi border, a man who barely survived an assassination attempt through sheer willpower. Now, that's his story, Doc. What do you think?
I think that's pretty compelling. If you listen to it from that standpoint.
Well, now let's start to really look at the story.
Really?
Yeah, like the TBI, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, looked at the story. So let me show you why every single part of this story is impossible. Why the evidence proves Buford deleted his wife, and staged the scene. Think about the call itself. Someone calls in a disturbance in the early morning hours when it's still dark, demands the sheriff respond, not the deputy or his father, Carl, who was initially going to go out on the call. That's not how emergency calls work, unless someone is specifically trying to lure out a sheriff who always said he had death threats against him. But here's what makes this even more suspicious. According to deputies who worked with Buford, Pauline never went on calls. She's the mother of 3 children. If her husband is in such danger, do you truthfully think at 4 a.m. she's like, hey, I'll go with you. I'll go for that ride. Please. No mother in her right mind would get in that car. And this was not something she did. The deputies all said so. And being such a great law enforcement officer, you know that they're told you don't take family in a cruiser when you're going on a call. So why would she suddenly insist on going along at this particular night, on this particular time, to the location that he was called out to? The answer is simple to me. She didn't insist. This was all part of an elaborate plan for him to have his wife deleted. But let's look at who Buford was. To understand why Buford crafted this elaborate story, you need to realize that before he became a sheriff, he was a professional wrestler in Chicago, going by the name of Buford the Bull. Wrestlers are performers. They create this dramatic stories. They know how to work a crowd, and they crave being the center of attention. That performer mentality never left him. Buford understood the power of narrative, of making himself the hero of every story. And when you're 6'6" and 250 pounds, people tend to believe your version of events. So let's look a little more closer at this story. This route that Buford chose made no sense for any emergency response. He took winding back roads instead of Highway 64, which was 2 blocks from his house, and would have been much faster and safer. Okay, you got that? 2 blocks from his house, he could have got on Highway 64 and got to the scene. Here's the crucial detail. New Hope Road had just been resurfaced the day before with what they called chat and oil. This is what loose gravel and oil. It's not like the modern black top that you might see on the roads. You know, Doc, you remember?
Yeah, I remember they used to do that all the time when I was a kid and on the farm. They basically oiling a gravel road.
Right. And it's treacherous to drive on at a high speed.
Sure.
And especially in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
But Buford claims he was doing 50 miles per hour on a dangerous surface. He claims the ambush happened at 4:45 a.m. in total darkness. But somehow the attackers knew where he'd be on this remote road. How did they know he wasn't going to take Highway 64? Huh? That doesn't make sense. How did they know to wait in at that specific church when there were actually multiple routes he could have even taken? He claimed these attackers followed him for over 2 miles, caught up with them twice, and fired 14 to 17 shots. Yet somehow these professional killers managed to kill Pauline instantly, but only grazed his chin. Now, if you're trying to assassinate a sheriff, why would you leave him alive as a witness? Pauline wasn't supposed to even be in the vehicle. Hey, fella. So most damning of all, there's the missing time. The call came in at 4 a.m. The ambush happened at 4:45 a.m., 45 minutes, but Buford wasn't found until 6:20 a.m. So what's he doing for nearly 2.5 hours? Anybody know?
Well, Chris makes a good point that he didn't radio for help at all.
No, not until a lot later.
Yeah.
The distance between those locations accounts for maybe 20 minutes of driving. Hey, Rev, so where was he for over 2.5 hours? See, that makes you think. Remember, he also said that he saved himself by diving onto the floorboard of the car. He was 6'6" and 250 pounds.
It'd have to be an awful big car for him to dive onto the floor of the car.
Exactly. So I'm beginning to think Buford here might be a liar. Now, next we're going to talk about Cheryl McCullum, and she is a crime scene investigator. Now, before I get into the details here, I just have to tell you guys, I am a huge fan of Cheryl McCullum. I fangirl out. I can't help myself. I've actually communicated with her before, and she is a super cool lady. But she was invited, and I'll go into a little more detail, by Mike Elam, who is a former sheriff, and he's the one that's really opened up this case. But he invited some other people, like investigators, to come along on a ride. He invited Cheryl because Cheryl is well known. And so they drove the route. And Cheryl said, I didn't think we were ever going to get there. We've been in this car for a half hour. She says the route only makes sense if you need time and privacy to stage a scene. Otherwise, there would be no reason to go that direction. And also she has set up Zone 7 as a podcast. If you ever want to catch it on Apple or Spotify, I love listening to her. She has some great guests. Okay, so back to our thing. Here we go. We're going to talk about the physics. The timeline doesn't work. Here are the roads, and at 50 miles per hour, traveling 0.7 of a mile takes less than a minute. So how does a car that the supposed assassins were in starts from a dead stop, no headlights are on, but they catch up to a speeding sheriff on a treacherous road surface? That doesn't make sense, does it, Doc?
No, not really.
Now, forensics expert Danny Couples put it simply. They would have had to have had their car in drive with their foot on the brake and gas, ready to go when they see somebody come by. How do they even know it's them in the first place? Yeah, it's early in the morning, but you don't know who drives that road, what time someone goes to work.
Well, doing it that way, they're on a gravel road. How are they going to keep from spinning out? They're not going to start, like you're on pavement.
Yep, you're right. Oh, Chris, yeah, I've heard of Sheila. I have. Cheryl's my girl, though. What can I say? her and Nancy Grace are buddies. And when they get on a podcast together, it is awesome. Just saying, guys. So even more impossible, after the first shooting, okay, these attackers caught up to them again 2 miles later, despite having lost the element of surprise. Remember, he claims he pulled over to check on his wife, but he also says that she was leaning on him so he couldn't get his weapon out. If you did not have access to a weapon, you had just been through a shootout, are you going to be pulling over? What do you think, Doc?
No, because I'd be getting my wife to the nearest hospital possible. If that were really the case.
Well, you know what the sad thing really was? The nearest hospital was over the state line, so he couldn't go that direction. Because then somebody else could investigate.
Mm-hmm.
So he crashed the car. Yeah. He claims the attackers followed him for over 2 miles, caught up with him twice, fired those 14 to 17 shots, But these professionals just killed Pauline instantly, but grazed him on the chin. I still do. You know, what is he saying? We have 2.5
And
hours.
supposedly they were professionals, so I'm
Yeah,
hoping that they were professional enough to be a good shot, you know?
you would think so, wouldn't you?
Right?
But let's look at the forensic evidence, the science. Cheryl McCullum, with 44 years of crime scene experience, analyzed the photos. And there clearly is a high velocity splatter in a certain direction. But she says, I don't know how in the world that happened on the outside of the car, because he said they never got outside the car. He said he had opened his door and took a step out, but that was it, just put his foot down. But Pauline never left the car. So on the hood of the car, you can, if you can look close, there's drops of blood, but the velocity, it's wrong. And the one with the arrow, that's the back door. How did blood get on the back door? That would be behind where Pauline was sitting.
Yeah, because if you look at like flow mechanics, it obviously that had to come from the front of the vehicle.
Exactly. Now, Danny Couples was even more specific. He said the blood came from the front of the car at 35 to 45 degree angle from a standing position. There's no question about it. Now, this is Pauline's door. He said Pauline was leaning on him, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But yet there's all this blood coming down the side of the door. So how did that happen?
Like she had been leaning on the door and it flowed from her head.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we see the void there. So it makes you go, Now, Cheryl, see, here's a shot that went in through the window that was supposed to have shot Pauline in the head, right? They said there's no way for the blood to have come out to have got on the hood. It doesn't work that way. Hole's too small. Couldn't have happened.
Yep.
And then Cheryl was the first one of the group that looked at this. Or, oh no, let me see. Let me go back one. Go back to this photo. Come on, machine. If you see where the man is standing in the red arrow, there's 2 bullet holes there. Though that was where Buford would have had the door open. So that's why he said he had opened his door and took a foot out, a step out. Which is interesting because when he supposedly shot up the car himself, he had to account for why there would be 2 bullet holes right there. Why was your door open? So see, he had to explain that. You know, he couldn't just pretend it didn't happen. Now, here again, look at this bigger photo of the car seat, and right below it, you see a pair of shoes. Those are Pauline's shoes. See how neatly they're set on the floor? Now, if she had been a victim sitting in the car when she was deleted, why would her shoes neatly look like somebody had just picked them up and placed them there? Does it make sense?
No, not at all.
Sorry. I don't follow that. But Buford didn't realize we'd get better at forensics. Now, Cheryl, first time she looked at the photos, and Mike Elam said she was the only one, she discovered a bullet hole in the hood of the car that investigators had missed for 58 years. The blood splattered patterns were impossible if both victims are in the car, as Buford claimed. And like Cheryl said, I have been looking at bullet holes for years. She says you can see the indentation, you can see how it dimples there. She said, that's a bullet hole. So that was interesting. Now, there were 3 witnesses who either saw or heard something that night, but nobody actually talked to them. Mike Elam, who wrote a book on this, was able to put some things together. And this is LaVon Plunk. And she was best friends with Pauline. And she actually heard arguing at the house that night because Pauline had come with LaVon and told her, I want to go get my things. I'm leaving Buford. So she took her to the house. Pauline went in and she heard them arguing. And she said she heard a single gunshot. But she got scared because Buford scared her and she took off. She was never interviewed. And she said then later on, she was told that Pauline had been deleted in an ambush, and she knew it was a lie. But there was no one you could turn to in the county at the time because Buford ran it. Now, when Buford married Pauline, she had 2 children. They only had 1 daughter together, but she had 2 other children. So there were 3 children in the house. Diane is Pauline's daughter, and she was a child at the time, but she said that she actually had heard the argument. She heard a shot, and she actually saw Buford carry Pauline's body to the car. Her testimony was dismissed because, yes, she was a child. She remembers it, though, because she said she was scared and thought he was going to come for her, and she got under her bed. Now, that's not a child making up tales because it was a traumatic event. But of course, nobody would interview her. Now, Ward Moore was the coroner at the time, and he actually got called out by Carl because he said that Buford and Pauline were fighting and they needed him to come to the house. Well, by the time he got there, all he found was some drops of blood on the carpet. Of course, nobody asked him to testify about anything either because they don't do that. But you might ask, hey, he was a lawman. He was supposed to be, this super duper, hero. Well, let's talk about some of his patterns of violence because this wasn't his first killing. He actually had shot and deleted Louise Hathcock, claiming it was self-defense. She ran this roadhouse, and when you wanted to run a business, you had to pay Buford. When she ran out of money and couldn't pay him, he showed up. Now, his deputy was not in the room when he went in to talk to Louise. And he said he heard her scream. He heard several shots from Buford's gun, and then heard a smaller shot from Louise's gun because she had a smaller weapon. And so when it all came out, Buford said that she had shot at him, and so he returned fire. Of course, his gun went first, so that's not really returning fire, is it, Doc?
Oh, not hardly.
And there was an autopsy on Louise. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, they never did an autopsy on Pauline. Yeah, think about that. Louise had an autopsy, and it shows she was shot twice in the back and then in the head while she was on the floor. And this is a picture of the autopsy. But you know what? When it went to the grand jury, the autopsy disappeared. Shocking, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It just vanished without a trace.
It did. Then he shot and paralyzed Paul David English, who is the gentleman with the dark hair, because he got a call out and he was pursuing him, and he just opened fire on him. Now he was partially paralyzed. On Christmas Day in 1968, he deleted Charles Russell Hamilton. again claiming it was self-defense, but there were no witnesses. Now, I'm not going to tell you Charles Russ Hamilton was a good guy. He had deleted people. But there are people that still don't believe that Buford was, doing it because of his job. More like he was just fed up with the guy. Now, Buford had powerful friends. He had a relationship with Ray Blandon, U.S. representative and later governor, who helped protect him from serious scrutiny. Blandon was later revealed to be just as corrupt because he was involved in selling pardons and even deletion for hire. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that's right. Irish Amy. He was shooting everybody, but that wasn't part of the Hollywood story.
No, that didn't make it into the movies.
No.
Now, Deputy Moffat, one of his deputies, was in total fear because his reaction after Louise was deleted, he quit for several days and he told his family, if anything ever happens to me, you don't need to look any further than Buford, because he knew it was sketchy. So his own chief deputy was afraid of him. Moffat also noticed that Buford was only attacked when he was alone. He never got attacked if he had Moffat or another deputy with him, just when he was by himself so he could tell a wild tale. Isn't that interesting? But once you understand that Buford likely deleted his wife, staged an elaborate ambush, every single one of the legendary tales of his courage and survival suddenly come into question, you guys. This is a man who had claimed he had been shot 8 times, stabbed 7 times by various criminals who were supposedly trying to delete him. But when you add up the actual documented incidents, the numbers don't match his claims. And Mike Elam, in his book, he matched him up. Now, Mike Elam, when he started researching into Buford and his wife, he was a fan. He was a cop. A lot of cops went into becoming cops because of Buford. So, Mike said, don't meet your heroes. Don't look into them because it doesn't turn out well, like the song said.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take that January 1967 shooting where he said 2 bullets went through the exact same hole in his cheek without damaging his lips, gums, teeth, or tongue. What are the odds of that? Danny Couples' assessment, which he's an investigator, said it was likely self-inflicted. Or consider his pattern of being attacked only when he was alone, like Deputy Moffat said. Why was this supposedly fearless sheriff only targeted when there are no witnesses? The famous story about being cut up at the Plantation Club requiring 192 stitches, wrestling photos that were taken just 2 years later when he was going to go back into wrestling showed no visible scars on his chest or torso. Now you're talking about 192 stitches. That's going to show up, people.
But Hollywood needed to sensationalize it a little.
I think so. Hey, Artie, get with me and we'll chat. I'd love to cover that. So, no scars. And this man supposedly bore the marks of multiple violent encounters, but his skin was remarkably unmarked. Each tale of his brush with death, each story of this fearless confrontation with dangerous criminals, each claim of barely surviving assassination attempts, they all follow the same pattern as Pauline's deletion. Dramatic stories with no witnesses, evidence that doesn't quite add up, and Buford is the heroic survivor. Think about that. Rev, yeah, best stitching job ever. Not back then. I mean, come on. Back then, they weren't that good.
Did they even know what plastic surgery was back then?
I don't know what the plastic surgery was like back then, but I don't think it's as good as what we have today.
No.
So, I mean, it's just Buford just had stories to tell. And when you stop and think about it, this area that he covered only had around just over 18,000 people in it. Now, why was the Dixie Mafia, the Detroit boys, and the State Line boys so interested in his 18,000 people? But none of the other areas surrounding him had anything? Hey, Ola, thanks for popping in, sweetie. So none of the other sheriffs or in the other counties had this trouble that supposedly Buford had. Beginning to sound like Buford's the problem. I'm just saying.
Just saying.
Just saying. Southern Gal True Crime, thank you for coming. So while we're looking at isn't a fearless lawman who faced down organized crime, we're looking at a former wrestler who understood that the bigger, the more dramatic stories got, more attention. When you're willing to delete your own wife to maintain that image, what stories wouldn't you be willing to fabricate? The Walking Tall legend was built on courage. It wasn't built on courage. It was built on lies, stage incidences, and the systematic manipulation of a community that just wanted to believe in a hero. Because I think even like today, we want a hero. But you build people up and they usually fall, or they disappoint, or they turn out to be criminals.
Perfect recipe for a Hollywood blockbuster.
Exactly. So the timeline reveals the truth. The call came in around 4 a.m. The ambush allegedly happened at 4:45 a.m., but Buford wasn't found until 6:20 a.m. So we don't know what he was doing for those 2.5 hours. The entire route takes 20 minutes to drive, and those missing hours, well, they were spent staging one of the most elaborate crime scene deceptions in American law enforcement history. When modern science was finally applied to this case, every expert reached the same conclusion. Dr. Michael Revell, the forensic pathologist who examined all the evidence, because they actually exhumed Pauline. And in 2024, they concluded with reasonable medical certainty that the events did not occur as Buford stated. Pauline was shot outside the vehicle and then placed inside. Buford's wound was a close contact wound, not a long range wound it was likely self-inflicted. And remember, he said when he came to, if he passed out, then the people that were deleting them would have walked around that side and deleted him. Come on. But he said when he came to and he saw the weapon in the window, he grabbed it. Okay, well, where's the burn on his hand?
Yeah, but they were really, really bad gangsters.
I guess so. The ballistics expert, Dr. Eric Warren, he said the physical evidence indicated a staged crime scene. This was all on a live interview, you guys. TBI, Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, gave the other day. The district attorney, Mark Davidson, if Buford was alive today, there would be probable cause to charge him with deleting his wife. But perhaps the most insidious part of the cover-up was how it perpetrated itself through popular culture. Walking Tall wasn't just entertainment. It was propaganda that helped bury the truth about Pauline. Pauline got lost. The 1973 film was a massive hit, grossing the equivalent of today, if you counted it, it would have been close to like 300 million in today's money. It spawned sequels, TV shows, and remakes. Buford became a folk hero, inspiring countless people to pursue careers in law enforcement. The movie was fiction. The captions even said so, though most viewers ignored it. The film portrayed McNairy County as overrun by organized crime with casino-style gambling and widespread corruption. The town was 18,000 people. And like they said, it was a situation where this was the Bible Belt. Half of them weren't going to those kind of places. Half of them were older. Where were these people coming from? Yep. Falla. Yeah. It's the Walking Tall with The Rock, Bo Swinson, Don Joe Baker, Kevin Sorbo. They all played the part. Brian Dennehy even played the part.
Yeah.
At one time. So the reality so far is more mundane. Some bootlegging, yes. A simple dice game called Razzle and petty crime in a poor rural area of 18,000 people. But the Dixie Mafia and State Line Mob that terrorized the region were just figments of Buford's imagination, created to justify his action and explain away the violence that surrounded him. One of the main characters of the mafia was caught, and he talked about his crimes in prison. Guess what he never talked about? Buford. Now, he would have talked about it if he'd done it. Come on, because let's just say he would have become a folk hero in prison, going after Buford. But no, he never said a word. If these criminal organizations were so powerful and vengeful, why was Buford, like I said, the only law enforcement officer in the entire region who kept getting frequent attacks? Nobody else. Now, every year, McNairy County holds a Buford Festival. There's a museum in his honor where they actually took his old home and turned it into a museum. The water tower has his silhouette. Meanwhile, Pauline's grave marker, they didn't even put her maiden name on there. She was just Pauline Pusser, wife of Buford, in death as she had been in life. And that's a crime. The legend grew so powerful that questioning it became almost impossible. Anyone who suggested Buford wasn't the hero of the story was attacked as jealous, corrupt, or just wrong. The myth protected itself. People tried to turn Buford's 1974 death, though, because that's when he died, into another mystery. But there wasn't one. He died after he had just announced that they were going to make a sequel to Walking Tall. And he was going to be in the movie this time. And he got a check for $2 million. And the first thing he did was he went down and bought himself this beautiful Corvette, because he liked fast cars. And so afterwards, he went to a fair. The county fair, had some fun. And later, when he was driving home, he died drunk driving with the blood alcohol level of 0.18, twice the legal limit, and a high-powered Corvette as excessive speed. The FBI investigated this thoroughly. They said there was no sabotage, even though a local man tried to say there was. There was no assassination, just a violent man who had finally deleted himself through his own reckless behavior, just like he had deleted his wife. It took an unlikely hero to finally give Pauline that voice, and that was Mike Elam, a former Arkansas law enforcement officer who started researching this case as a fan and ended up becoming its most dedicated investigator. Elam spent over 20 years piecing together the real story, finding witnesses who'd never been interviewed, analyzing crime scene photos that didn't match official accounts. He followed evidence wherever it led him, even when it contradicted everything he believed about his childhood hero. Elam's work eventually reached the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and they reopened the case. Whoops, wrong one. Okay, in 2022, when they applied modern forensic techniques to the 50-year-old evidence. Elam had even found a weapon. And it was a tip that he got from someone that said that they had a weapon that they thought Buford had used. And this tip led investigators to the potential murder weapon. So they do have that. And that's when the TBI exhumed Paulina's body and performed the autopsy she should have gotten in 1967 because they didn't give her one. I doubt they kept her clothing because, there should have been blood evidence and all sorts of things. But because they were covering everything up, we know those things weren't kept. Expert after expert has concluded the same thing. The physical evidence was inconsistent with Buford's account and consisted with a staged crime scene. So on August 29th of 2025, District Attorney Mark Davison announced that if Buford were alive today, there would be probable cause to charge him with deleting his wife. The TBI's 1,000-page case file was made public, finally giving the world access to evidence that had been buried for nearly 6 decades. So they are going to release this case file in a few weeks so that people can look into it even more and see more. But I wanted to go ahead and get the story out. But before we close tonight, we're going to remember that there are families right now that are going through what Pauline's family had to endure of not seeing justice or not finding their loved one. And so here, let's take a look at our people. And I have a feeling, well, that went in backwards somehow. Okay, we'll just slide on down there. This is Nola Alexander Natoni. He's 14, indigenous male, missing from Casa Grande, Arizona. He's been missing since August 20th, 2025. He's 6 feet tall, 150 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Contact Casa Grande Police Department at 520-421-8700. He does have the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's number of M as in Michael, 938-554-110. You can also call their number at 800-843-5678. Let's bring him home. He's only 14. He needs to be home. Okay, let's see who we have here. Whoops. Now this is Justin, and this is an old case, you guys. We need to find Justin. Justin Lee McConville has been missing since January 1st, 2015. From Toppishton, Washington in Yakima County. He was 24 then and would be 34 now. He's 6 foot tall, 170 pounds, indigenous, with dark brown black hair, always worn in a ponytail, and brown eyes. He has extensive Native American tattoos, including the one here of Chief Joseph on his right arm sleeve, tribal designs on his left arm, and Native American designs on his back. Justin was traveling to Oregon. He was known to fish along the Columbia River. Contact the Yakima Nation Tribal Police at 509-865-2933. And they actually have a NamUs number. Shocker. M as in Michael, P as in Paul, 36730. Because we know, sadly, a lot of our Native Indigenous people do not get put in NamUs. Now, this is Isabel Calloy. I'm not sure, Isabel. Sorry if I got your name right, last name wrong. It's Calliou. Now, there is a difference on her age. Some were saying she was 13. Some say she's 16. Not sure there. She is missing from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. She's been missing since August 20th, 2025. In the pictures, you can see she's a kid making faces at herself, taking selfies. She's 5'4" with a slim build, black hair often worn in a braid, and hazel eyes. She has a flower tattoo on her left hand and on a scar above her left eye. Last seen wearing gray sweatpants and a black hoodie with Las Vegas on the sleeve near 94th and 137th Avenue in north central Edmonton, close to the Northgate Mall. Isabel's been out of touch with family and friends, and they're worried. So contact Edmonton Police Service at 780-423-4567. You can dial 377 on your mobile. And they also have a reference number which starts with M as in Michael, R as in Robert, U as in uniform. And it's M as in Michael, P as in Paul, 25, R as in Robert, 038. That's the reference numbers they use up there. And that's Isabella, probably 16, I'm thinking. Now, this is a sad one. This is Elam Begay. She's 62. They pretty much know they're not going to find her alive. She's an indigenous woman. She's been missing from Sweetwater, Arizona since June 15th of 2021. She's 5 foot tall, 125 pounds, with brown hair, brown eyes, and she wears glasses. Preston Henry Tolth has been arrested for carjacking and assaulting her, but she was never found. He said that he dropped her off on a road, but there's questions. There is a $5,000 reward for information. Contact the FBI at 623-466-1999. Her family wants to find her and bring her home. So if anyone has information on LMA, please. And I guess they have some trouble with his trial. That's a whole nother story we'll look into. But the next one, our last one, is Alara Cheminsky. Okay, we're just going on because that poor child, I just butchered her name. She's 14 years old. She's an Indigenous female missing from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, Canada, since August 23rd, 2025. She's 5'7", 128 pounds. She has dyed dark pink and violet hair, which I'm loving, and brown eyes. She has nose piercings and was last seen wearing either black pants, a black sweater, and black shoes, or on another side, it said a black hoodie with gray sweatpants. They can't make up their mind. I'm thinking she was wearing all black. She was last seen in either, here again, we have two different things, either the 300 block of 38th Street East or the 700 block of 28th Street in Prince Albert. The reference number is 2520756. Call the Prince Albert Police at 306-953-4222. She's just a kid. She needs to come home. She's 14 years old. Let's see. Make sure you guys all share some love with my mods, because I have the best mods on the planet. I love my mods, my little sisters. But remember, by paying attention to your surroundings when you're out and about, put the cell phone down. You might recognize a missing person and potentially save a life. Whether their disappearance was voluntary or involuntary, stay alert, stay aware, and remember the universal sign for help is, so if people are doing this, they need help. Every killer relies on silence. For 58 years, Buford counted on the community's silence, on Hollywood's fiction, and on a justice system that looked the other way. But silence didn't protect Pauline then, and it won't protect future victims now, because there are other Paulines out there. If you know something about any case, whether it involves a local hero, a beloved figure, or someone everybody wants to believe is innocent, because there are people in the town that still believe he's innocent, speak up. Because that wasn't just a story we told today. Pauline was a real woman with real children who deserved real justice. And somewhere out there, another Pauline is waiting for someone brave enough to challenge the narrative, demand the truth. You know, her brother was able to say that he can finally rest now because he knows what happened to his sister. He said, if I had known, I wouldn't have let her, because she had left Buford for a while and gone up to her brother's. She said, I wouldn't have left her. He said, I would have made her stay with me. He said, me and my children are happy that we know what happened. So this has been Trial Junkies United. I'm Z with my ride or die doc, reminding you that behind every legend lies a human story. Behind every hero narrative lies a more complex truth. Behind every unsolved case lies someone still waiting for justice. Please remember Pauline, say her name, tell her story, because that's how we honor the deceased, not by protecting the legend built on their graves, but by demanding the truth, no matter how long it takes. Don't be the reason we have to share another story like Pauline's. Until next time, you guys stay informed, stay compassionate, never stop seeking justice. Remember, silence is betrayal. # silence is betrayal. If you enjoyed this episode, you can buy us a cup of coffee if you want to support us, only if you're able. Don't get yourself in a financial bind. Subscribe to Trial Junkies United. Hit that thumbs up. You can support us by hitting the thumbs up, sharing our videos, making comments in the videos, because YouTube has their little algorithm. They want you to play the thing. So please do share Pauline's story with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the truth has no agenda. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us tonight. Love you all for helping us build this community, because we do have an awesome community that we're building of people that really care about other people and want to be of help when we can. Thursday night, I'm pretty sure I'm having a really super cool guest, if her schedule is still open. But you guys are going to have to be here. She is a native indigenous advocate, and we're going to have a chit chat, and I want you all to show up. So
just remember, everybody, just remember this, so that you don't forget, that mannequin over there, it's not really a mannequin.
It's never a mannequin, is it?
Never a mannequin.
Never is, guys. We love you. You guys have a good night. Thanks for sharing some time with us. We love you, and ciao.
We build them up so high, these titans in our mind. Perfect souls who never stumble, never fall behind. But underneath the cape and glory, flesh and bone remain. Just people with their own regrets, their own secrets. just what they meant. Some pedestals hold monsters and heroic cement. The innocence lies shattered and the dreams have turned to mold. Heroes aren't just people when their hearts are dark and cold. So I'll be more careful with the pedestals I build, learning that sometimes hero worship can get people killed. 'Cause heroes aren't just people when they're predators in disguise. Behind the smile and public face live such days